set auto-destruct sequence.
It's the time allotted that concerns me.
Recognize Picard, Jean-Luc, Captain. Recognize Riker, William T, Commander.
Maximum warp!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Warp Core Podcast. It is I, Urza Master. Joining me as always, Lord Uther, and from the great Q Continuum, Fert Derby. Welcome, gentlemen, welcome. We are back with Strange New Worlds, ready to hit it as we launch into episode 2 of the third season. One that I am most excited to talk about. So much going on here. So different a tone from our season opener, and I would be remiss if I spoiled anything this early in our episode. So, Fert Derby, give us the intro to this episode of Strange New Worlds.
Thank you, Warp Core fanatics. Thank you, Lord Uther, Urza Master, everyone that's here. We've got some Wedding Bell Blues in Season 3, Episode 2. We have a Canadian director, Jordan Canning. She has done episodes of Canadian television as well as Schitt's Creek, which was a Emmy Award-winning show of a couple of years past. She's also no stranger to comic Star Trek Strange New Worlds episodes. She was in the director's chair on July 13th, 2023, when Charades aired in Season 2. You will remember that's the episode where Spock accidentally turned full human right before his engagement ritual with T'Pring and had to pretend to be a Vulcan despite having full control of his human, or not control of his human emotions. So that was Jordan Canning directing, and you'll see why she was brought back for this episode. We also had a dual writing, Kirsten Beyer and David Reed. Kirsten, of course, started off writing like fan fiction / Star Trek novelizations before they brought her into Picard and Discovery and Strange New Worlds. She co-wrote this episode. She also did Among the Lotus Eaters from Season 2. We talked about that before with Davy Perez. That's the episode where everyone lost their memories and couldn't get them back every 24 hours, and Ortegas had to save them. David Reed, he did a couple of Season 2 episodes himself. He did Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and that was the episode where Lan Singh went back in time, ran into James Kirk back in the 20th century. You remember that episode. They even shared a little melancholy romance. So David Reed gave us that. He also gave us Lost in Translation, which was an Uhura forward episode of Season 2, where she was having hallucinations and so forth, and the crew, including Pelia, had to talk her back from the brink. We also had the great comic actor Rhys Darby from New Zealand playing the Andorian bartender, wedding planner, and otherwise mischievous interloper. You recognize Rhys from the film version of What We Do in the Shadows, Flight of the Conchords, the HBO cult musical comedy series. He's been in Our Flag Means Death, also on HBO Max. On the big screen as well, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, Next Goal Wins from Taika Waititi. He's a friend of Taika's, and he's just absolutely pitch perfect. He is out Martin Short as a wedding planner in this episode. This episode takes place 3 months after the season premiere, Hegemony Part 2. It's the 100th anniversary celebration of the Federation, and did I hear wedding bells in the background? And a complete tonal change from our action-packed, throat-gripping intensity of the premiere. This one has Spock dancing with Lan. It has Scotty running the transporter, wink wink. It had some absolutely tremendous dialogue. It had our favorite Vulcan keep waking up in bed next to different characters throughout the episode. And some of them felt like dream sequences, and some of them were the real meal deal. And I think our episode should start, middle, and end with a celebration of Ethan Peck. We've had other people try to play Mr. Spock, and we've all acknowledged that without Leonard Nimoy, there is no Mr. Spock, case closed. But even for all the people who have come after him and have tried to find his voice, his gravitas, all of that, Ethan Peck has managed to imbue Spock with such a sly sense of humor. And it's not humor where he's trying to let you know he's being funny, but this is probably singularly, without a doubt, like as good a performance as Leonard Nimoy ever could, and the writers never gave Leonard Nimoy enough of those opportunities in the original series to show that kind of wit, to show that kind of sly. It's in what he says, it's in how he delivers the lines, and it's how the others play off of those lines. I mean, he's probably the funniest character on the show, and it's not I'm going for laughs, hamming it up funny. It's such a remarkable performance for somebody that has to step into such big shoes and has so much pre-existing baggage. Like, again, I'm not an actor, and even if I was, that would seem like a damn near impossible tightrope to walk. And he just, honestly, we're just sort of getting introduced to him as this kind of level of actor or star. I'd like to see him in other roles too, to be able to test that range and that. But as Spock, I mean, this is a singular performance that we're witnessing right now. One to really cherish.
I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot more I could say about Spock in that breath. Is like he's perfect. Ethan Peck is the absolute. It's Leonard Nimoy and Ethan Peck. No offense to Zachary Quinto, because I think he did an okay job given what he was provided in that role. But I mean, I think Leonard Nimoy would be proud of what Ethan Peck is doing, and it's very true to form, true to character. This episode, boy, I love Flight of the Conchords, first and foremost. Huge fan of Rhys Darby, and I loved his character on that show. So seeing him as who I believe to be Trelane, oh my God, it's perfect. Like, I figured after Hegemony Part 2, you needed some kind of a narrative break. And what better way to give us a break than the 100th anniversary of Starfleet and United Federation of Planets and just party, right? Everybody needs that emotional break. And I think we get a bit of that hangover with Ortegas. It's like she's dealing with PTSD, clearly, and possibly not well. You also get Uhura with a little bit of new love interest potential. And, you get just some nice, fun interplay with most of the cast and crew of characters. We get Corby, which I was excited to see, because, of course, the last time we saw him, he was a robot. So it was nice to see a little bit of that interaction with Nurse Chapel, and also see kind of the emotional struggle she's having with that relationship as well. Especially being, once again, confronted with Spock, and Spock having to deal with that in a very Vulcan way. And it came across just so downtoned and underplayed, where it was just like, you can tell there's jealousy. Like, Spock may not have emotions, but this Spock, like, he's still getting to be more of a Vulcan. And that was very cool to see play out. Moreover, to see him be the sort of victim of the tomfoolery, if you will, was just truly outstanding. And then putting him and Corby together, and how more Spock-like than to be the one to be like, you're right, this isn't right, we need to make it right, even though this is what I want. this is what it has to be. And it's like, okay, wow, this is cool. And then to see that there's some sort of a scientific explanation to what Trelane is doing here, it just all played so well, so very well. And then when they kept trying to get the other characters to break from this, mental entrapment, and they just couldn't. And it's like, oh, this is so funny. It's so comedic, but at the same time, it's so very Star Trek. Like, this is definitely the game episode from Next Generation. Trying to get folks to stop doing what's taken over their mind is such a great. It's a trope, but it's not so overdone that it feels tropey. So that was exciting. And then I hate to jump right to the end of the episode, but everybody always asked, is Trelane a Q? And now we have our answer. Because who better to voice this weird gaseous energy entity but the voice of Q himself? And I gotta say, I didn't think I could be more excited than I was for the first episode of the season until that happened on the second episode. And the whole time I'm thinking, is it Trelane? Is it a Q? Are they one and the same? I had it figured out, but I didn't have it totally figured out. And that is just enough for a TV show to be incredibly impressive. Because how many times have you watched a good TV show and you're like, well, I kind of know what's going to happen. I kind of know at the end the heroes are going to win. The bad guys are going to lose. Or this person who's a hero but is clearly a temp character of some kind is going to die. Or, somebody's going to get hit in the head with a baseball bat with some, wire on it. We know things are going to happen. We're not dumb. And I think it's respectful of the audience, first and foremost, but even more so, it's trusting of the audience. That you still get that little bit of a question. It's like, we're just going to put the nail in the coffin on this one, and then they can just be excited that they were right. And if they were wrong, they can be excited that they didn't get it. So that, to me, was just, chef's kiss.
Yeah, I think it's a good point that you needed a little bit of a down episode after what we had just witnessed. And they almost play that up, too, in a sense, to let you know that. Oh, we've been in space dock, was it 3 months or something like that, going through a refit. Everyone's had some downtime. They even kind of acknowledge that. I like how when they were interacting with Trelane, they were all seeing someone different. And it took me a second to realize that. Like Spock was seeing a Vulcan, and then I think Pike said Andorian at one point. So they're all seeing someone different, but they're not picking up on each other seeing someone different, which I thought that was pretty interesting. So this brings me to a completely different question, just with TV series and movies going forward. Are we going to see something where actors start signing off their rights to their voices and their likeness, like James Earl Jones did, so that way you can almost have that consistency in the future if needed? Do you see where I'm going with that? Like the idea of we hear the voice of Q and it is DeLance. I'm saying his name wrong, last name wrong, I know. Doing that, right? But at some point, God forbid, Patrick Stewart's going to leave us and William Shatner's going to leave us and Q is going to leave us because I said his last name wrong. So is this something that is going to wind up happening? That kind of hit me during this episode. Could that be the trend in Hollywood? But with all that, I'll let you guys answer that in a second. Perfect episode. Love the PTSD of the Gorn, which makes me wonder what's going to happen down the line there. If we're going to see them again before the season is over, possibly. I'll leave it at that. So I'll throw it at you guys.
I'm gonna grab that John Delancey bit first thing because I get it from both points of view. Like, you don't want anybody or AI coming along in the future using likeness and voice and screwing it up, right? Because you can do virtually anything if you have the ability to use both of those with impunity, right? I think the truth of the matter is it's going to happen whether you want it or not. Because at some point you're dead, and you've been dead so long, nobody cares anymore. So there's something to be said about that too, that it's just like, it's almost better to take charge of that while you're still alive and say, here are the guidelines in perpetuity, and get it signed into contract. It's not going to stop the North Koreans from making their own version of something. We've all seen those reels. The North Korean Star Wars is one of my favorites.
Yes.
But I think James Earl Jones has definitely started a trend that is probably for the best, because you can entrust that to entities who, yeah, do they want to make a buck? At the end of the day, of course. And they're going to continue to make many bucks. But you can write it right into your contract over your rights. Like, hey, in perpetuity, you can do these things for whatever purpose you see fit, as long as it meets XYZ criteria. And a portion of the money goes to, my estate to be funneled through all these charities. A lot of good could come from that. I also see it from the creative point of view, me not being any kind of an artist at all. I don't love the idea of a computer or somebody else saying they're making things that are me or of my idea. I know a lot of artists hate AI art. I know a lot of people hate AI just because of the resources it uses and the fact that it does stuff without quote unquote boundaries. They're getting better at that, but part of me is also like, but it works so much better when it's free. And it works so much better when you can do whatever you want with it. It's also dangerous, and yeah, it could be a problem. But I lean towards, I think if it's done right, and I think it has to be the volition of the actor to define what is right. You could do it, and you could get some really great things. Because I'd love to see a Luke Skywalker series with Mark Hamill's voice, his likeness, doing all the Luke Skywalker things we didn't get to see, or Kirk doing more TOS things that we didn't get to see because they canceled the series, even beyond just what they did in the animated series. I'd love to see a James Doohan series, or we've brought this up 1,000 times, Captain Sulu, for crying out loud, in the Excelsior. Even if all he does is drink tea and do science missions, where he's like, look at that nebula, oh my.
Oh my.
It would be amazing. And I don't even care. I don't even care if it's like just pure science. Like if it's just like, let's study space today, crew. And then it's literally like an educational show about space. That would be phenomenal. I would be so cool with that. Or LeVar Burton's AI voice and likeness doing Reading Rainbow for kids for the next 200 years. The world could be a better place, assuming they fund PBS. But I don't want to get too far into the weeds without hearing what Fert Derby thinks, because he is the most creative among us.
Gentlemen, I think the difference between creating content and consuming content is where I would fall on the AI great debate. I think there's always going to be a part of me, even if I hear Darth Vader's voice in 20 years with new dialogue and a new, Obi-Wan Kenobi spin-off series, part of me is always going to know that it is this artificial, like there's going to be a separation in my brain. And I think it's probably easier with James Earl Jones and a masked Darth Vader or Q as a glowing bauble. But when we start even pushing into likenesses, as you say, like, I can use Marlon Brando. I can have Marlon Brando in Raiders of the Lost Ark if I want. Like, that's, those are bridges that I'm not comfortable crossing, both as a viewer and as, someone, a creator, getting hired. Hey, we want you to write Brando into, Rocky or something. I just, the technology, it's what is the Jeff Goldblum line in Jurassic Park in 1993? They were so busy figuring out how to do it that they never stopped to figure out whether they should do it. And we have this Pandora's box. It's opened. You can't close it. It's, as Ursa says, we should accept the inevitability of such things and then just learn to get comfortable with them in our own place. I think, to answer Lord Uther's question specifically, yes. I think if there is a way to guarantee that your future contributions, whether you see them or not, are protected and not licensed out for a beer commercial or, something less than. If James Earl Jones's thing says you can use my voice for Darth Vader, we can't see him on screen kill a child, et cetera. Whatever restrictions, stipulations, or guidelines there are, I think that's the way to go. I think it's going to be a very stop and start kind of process. I don't think we'll see a floodgate of actors like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise doing this right away, if at all. But yes, I think that will start to become more and more sort of an aspirational building block for the industry. My thought, real quick, gentlemen, on this episode, I think the first two episodes were very strong, Spock and Chapel, in different degrees of tension and so forth. And I think this episode gives them the license now to put that back on the back burner. And I'm not sure, I hope you would agree with me. I think we will probably see less and less of that particular subplot now as we move forward in the season. And that's not to say we won't get moments between them or even some great interplay down the road or even revisiting it. But I think these first two episodes are Spock Chapel heavy. And I think that gives them license then to put that will they or won't they subplot to bed for the moment. We love Roger Corby here at the Warp Core. We talked about Roger Corby here at the Warp Core. What are little girls made of? Of course, we were introduced to him in his robot double. We talked about that well back on Warp Core episode 32. Go back to the archives and check, ladies and germs. So we have met Mr. Corby. He kind of gave me a diet Colin Farrell feel in a couple of moments. But to Ursa Master's point, this whole thing felt like Richard Curtis, and he's the man who gave us Four Weddings and a Funeral and Love Actually and all those cute British American rom-coms of the early 2000s and late 90s. It's a comedy of manners. It has some just fantastic dialogue and interplay. Notice the scene at the bachelor party. Scotty at first begs off of the Saurian brandy, says, I never touched the stuff. But then later, as Spock is trying to explain the timeline, shift that they've all experienced, you can see Scotty like motioning, here, give me some of that. Like, I need a drink. And it's like a joke in the background. It's not the focus of the scene, but it's terrific. As you realize, here, pour me some of that. I'm getting a headache. That entire bachelor party sequence, Spock goes through his whole exposition. This is what we have to do, Captain. And there's Corby raising a glass to Spock, the luckiest guy in the like. He's just like, forget it. We got to play along here. And it's, yes, with the Rhys Darby. And I would say, unlike the Squire of Gothos and the Trelane episode in this one, here he truly, it's sort of impish fun, almost like what Robin Williams, what a character he might play like to do. Like, he's not trying to make mischief to hurt people. He really wants Spock to get what he wanted. And he's willing to, again, save the flowers and save the wedding cake and turn Corby into a beautiful dog. He's not doing it like, again, I want to conquer the universe. I want all that. He's trying to make somebody's wish come true, and he'll go to any lengths to do it. And that's kind of fun too, because if he is a Q and he's, Q's child, Q always had some strings attached. He'd play games with Picard and the crew, and there was always some ulterior motive and always some this, that, or the other that he wanted. And I think this unnamed character, aka Trelane, I think he just honestly wanted Spock to be fulfilled. And he'll go to any lengths to do it, including at the end threatening everybody with interdimensional death or imprisonment, just so Spock can have what he wanted. And what other Star Trek series or episode is going to quote the great poet Pablo Neruda so eloquently? You certainly weren't getting that in the 60s, although I'm sure he was still alive and kicking. So some literary roots there, and just some fabulous. mention the costumes. I mean, the characters get to break out of their uniforms or put on their best dressed uniforms. I mean, there's Christine in a beautiful aqua green kind of, different look for a bride. And Uhura got to wear some civilian clothes in this one, and some of the other characters. And you think back to the Deanna Troi, Will Riker romance that will develop over time in the Next Generation. The Spock Chapel easily can match any of your favorite moments from that coupling in the Next Generation, and even has a little bit more pain in it, a little more sting, knowing what we know, how they really can't be together. What is a great love story after all? It's whatever obstacles you can put between two lovers, because if two lovers come together easily, you have nothing. I mean, Shakespeare gave us that with Romeo and Juliet and everything else. If it's easy for them to be together, then it's not really worth having, is it? And here we've created such a chasm, such a gulf, such an abyss that Spock and Chapel would ultimately have to overcome in order to find each their own version of happiness. Like, that's what makes it so beautiful and so poetic, whether you're just starting off in relationships or whether you've been in one for 30, 40 years together. Like this cuts right in there and deep. And it may not bring you to your knees bawling, reaching for a box of tissues, but you feel that sting, that keen sting of love that was, love that is, love that could be, love that shouldn't be. So, well done.
Or
Cuts like a
Love
knife.
Boat. It feels so right. I like the point that we can now move this to the back burner, that it's played itself out. I think that's an excellent point. We can kind of move on from that. And kind of going back to our previous episode, which I know everyone's listened to already, not a lot of number one, right? Like, we're not getting a lot of that. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out in some future episodes here too. But great point about Spock and Chapel. It's over. Let's move on. And I think they kind of sealed the deal on that one. I'll go first and rank, unless Urza, you have some more incredible comments, because you always do.
Take us away.
I'm going 7 again. I don't know how I can't, because this was to both of your phenomenal points as always. This is a great filler episode without it really being a filler, in a sense. Kind of locks in some Star Trek lore that we've always wondered about, and I think that's important too. And I think that's something else this series has just done a phenomenal job with, and that Picard Season 3, which we continuously reference here on the Warp Core, did a great job of, is being able to link some of these things without cheese. Like, it all plays out perfectly, and here we go. We assume this is Trelane, right? Because it's not really said that. Am I correct? Okay.
That's correct.
We kind of get that feeling, though, and here comes Q to kind of confirm that. And I think that's very important. Great episode. I'm going 7. I'm skipping Urza, and I'm going to Furt. Furt, derby us.
Gentlemen, when the fall comes, we may fall hard, but right now let's just bask in the ecstasy and the glory of, yes, consecutive 7s, something I don't think any of the previous Star Trek incarnations that we've covered thus far, possibly Picard Season 3, we can go back and do the math, but that would be the only one that comes to mind where we could have had back-to-back perfection in the rating system. So Picard Season 3 notwithstanding, everybody else, there's always a peak and a valley. Here we're all peak, no valley at this point. So I shudder. I hope they can maintain that high level of excellence. Again, this is a show that can be many different personalities. I mentioned this in off chat with Ursa Master. You can have an intense action-oriented episode, and you can come right back with a comedy of manners, and you can do something completely different. You can't pigeonhole the show, and I know that some people have laid fault on that on the internets, saying, well, what's this show about? It's all over the place. And I think that keeps it fresh, it keeps it original, And like I said, I've stopped thinking about it as that's Anson Mount in the captain's chair, and I'm just thinking of it as Chris Pike, and I'm thinking of it as Nyota Uhura. Like, these actors have inhabited their characters to something that Lord Uther said. I've stopped thinking about them as performers, and I'm just literally now watching them as if I was reading a good book, and these are the next chapters in this novel, and these are the people I'm following. Like, they have inhabited these characters from head to toe. And again, we're just starting off on season 3, so just well done all around. It's the commitment to the performance, it's the writing and the directing, and the show's producers making sure that they've curated everything to make it pop. So there's a lot of success to go around, but just kudos. Yes, I don't want to see them drop to a 6 or a 5 or a 4, but let's keep perfection where it is right now, and another 7 for here.
Urza, we have Twin Peaks here. Are we going to see Triple Peaks like we did in Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Ooh, I hope we see Triple Peaks, because I'm going with a 7 as well.
Bam! That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's this episode was great. I mean, I can't think of a way to improve it. The last episode, I even had a way to improve it, but it was so great that it's like, that would have just made it unreal great. This was just a perfect 7. I mean, everything I wanted to see, and I wanted to get Q involved in this series somewhere, happened. So and it's got a throwback to Trelane. It's got just everything you would want in a downbeat episode. Which I would say the third episode's got a lot of pressure on it now. I don't think they're going to miss, because they haven't yet. And I'd be fine with a 6, but I am hoping for better. The other thing I would add is I do think we need more of Una Chin Riley in the next episode.
Can I look? I'm going to build off of your improvement for the last episode, and I'm going to pull that into this episode. If Ortegas had died, and here's what I mean by that: they could, if she would have died in the last episode, they could have brought her back, because Trelane would have done that. And then they all realize that she's dead. Mm-hmm. So that ending of this episode could have had that emotional gravitas that we would have seen, like, carried over, because they all would have remembered, oh man, because she would have disappeared, right? Once Trelane kind of undoes everything, then she goes, but then they all reference back that she was there and then she's gone again. And I think that would have really, to your point, could have been some of the greatest Trek ever.
That could have really elevated it to the next level.
Paramount, call us. What are you waiting for?
Yeah,
I mean,
why aren't we on
please.
this writing staff? I mean, the Warp Core podcast here on Pending Rebrand. Are we not entertaining? Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that like button. Drop us a line in those comments. What do you think about episode 2 of Strange New World season 3? I certainly loved it. We all loved it here. We can't wait to talk the next episode, which should be dropping this week, I believe, and we'll always have Next Gen as well rolling out with us. So until we hit it, make it so.